All right, so the Mike Enoch versus Halsey English debate is just concluded, and I wanted to make some points. First and foremost, we have to understand that I cannot accurately prescribe a winner or a loser for this debate because there was no actual substance to this debate on one opponent's side, and that was Halsey. Essentially, what he does when he's debating someone is he takes a point, he goes on for a minute-long speech about the point, and while he may make a factual statement here or there, what he does to manipulate the audience is he sprinkles in little things that are his opinion and touts them as fact. And the most blatant use of this tactic is when he consistently and annoyingly appeals to popularity in arguing against Mike. He's not actually arguing any substance. He is appealing to popularity and telling Mike, well, white people don't agree with you, therefore your ideas are wrong. And this is obviously a fallacy. It doesn't make any sense, and Mike tried to bring it up, but I don't think he pushed him on it as hard as he could have. Another thing he does is he drops in these little phrases like, well, the Jews were here when America started up, but at the same time he ignores the actual point that Mike or JF was actually making. So he throws in his opinion every now and again. Oh, well, most Jews don't vote like that, or if your employer fires you, just go start a lawsuit, things like that. Not actual substance, and are completely subjective depending on what reality Halsey lives in. I don't know what reality he's living in, but he's obviously dancing around the topic at hand. So the debate starts out with JF asking a question. He says, is the alt-right movement based in anti-Semitism? And I don't like the usage of the phrase anti-Semitism because it is a loaded phrase, it is an emotional phrase, it is a buzzword, it is used to shut down people who have an alternative viewpoint in a lot of ways, because what they do is they just scream anti-Semite and they don't actually respond to your argument. So, of course, Mike brings up the great counterpoint to say that no, it is not simply hatred against one group, it is a critique of the institutional power that this group holds and kind of lauds over us and uses against us and against our interests. And of course, Halsey's counterpoint to that would be, oh, well, it's not all this, it's not all that, the majority of, and more appeals to popularity. And of course, because it is true that there's a disproportionate amount of people who are Zionists or who have Israeli interests who are in positions of power. Halsey obviously cannot argue against this, so what he does instead is he agrees to it. He agrees to the premise that there is a significant amount of people who are of Jewish descent, who are pro-Jewish, who are, you could say, Jewish supremacists, although I think that's also a loaded term. And so what he does next is he completely avoids that topic of discussion and moves into something else. And Halsey's main critique of Mike Enoch is that he talks a lot but doesn't actually get anything done, or that he doesn't actually propose any solutions. This is absolutely incorrect. Mike tried to get in on the solutions, but I don't think he pushed Halsey enough with the actual valid solutions. Because here's what Halsey does. He says that, you're not actually putting forth any solutions, except, he goes straight to the genocide fallacy, which isn't correct. Instead of actually listening to what people like Mike Enoch and other prominent figures in the alt-right are proposing, they are proposing nonviolent solutions. Unfortunately, those solutions get shot down, things get worse over time, eventually there will be a racially motivated conflict. Now, another thing that Halsey does, because he, I believe, is a civic nationalist, he definitely uses civic nationalist arguments, is that because people exist within a country, they have some innate universal human right to X, Y, or Z. Individual rights, he refers to the Constitution a lot. And Mike's argument is that these people are not playing by the rules, they are advocating directly against our interests. We do not have to honor this agreement, because if we do honor this agreement and replaced, we cannot allow ourselves to not break the rules if the other team is breaking the rules. This isn't just some sports game, this is real life. There are people who are holding you to a higher moral standard than they are holding themselves. This was my criticism against the liberalist movement, is that they are not willing to break the rules in order to save themselves from certain destruction. Halsey goes on and on about freedom this and freedom that, and individual right here and individual right there. But what he fails to acknowledge is that we have, under these laws, under these rule books, we have a right to not have our money forcefully taken from us and given to Israel in the form of defensive aids. I did a video called Just a Conspiracy that delves into the topic that Halsey wants to avoid at all costs because he simply cannot refute it. The problem is that these extremely powerful financial institutions, legal institutions, media institutions use all of their power to exert their influence on the world and push us into opening the borders and subsidizing foreigners' lifestyles and giving foreign aid to countries and essentially taking everything from us, including land. And of course, Halsey brings up the tired old argument, well, just pack up your life, buy some land in Montana, and form your ethno-state there. That's not how it works in reality. He keeps harping on and on about these hypotheticals that are never going to work. The change has to come within the country. This is a country that, as Mike Enoch pointed out, was founded by whites. They imposed and legislated white migration laws, and whites continued to be a supermajority until we get things like cultural Marxism, so on and so forth in the 60s. We've all heard this before on the alt-right. We're familiar with this. Halsey just completely ignores all of this altogether because he knows that he cannot win this argument. The only way that Halsey can win this argument, so to speak, and convince people who are already civic nationalists or are already fans of his is by using these slimy debate tactics where he sprinkles in some non-truths that are hard to disprove while at the same time completely avoiding the topic that they're bringing up and shifting to something else. So another disgusting thing that Halsey does is instead of actually addressing the point that his opposition is making, he will use the opportunity to personally attack the person making the argument and use that to somehow disprove the argument. Just because X, Y, and Z happened in someone's life does not disprove the point that they are making. If you are going to personally attack someone, you also need to dismantle their argument at the same time. Unfortunately, just straight up saying, well, you did this and this happened in your life, that disproves your argument, and then crossing his arms like a child and thinking that he won. No, this is only something that slimeballs use and is only something that idiots fall for. Don't fall for this tactic that these debaters use. Instead of actually hitting the meat of the matter, they dance around it the entire time. This is exactly what this debate was. I saw this coming when they first brought up that Mike Enoch and Halsey English were going to debate. I knew exactly from the beginning what it was like because I saw how he acted when he was arguing or debating against Nick Fuentes. It's because he does this all the time. Instead of actually arguing against the point that the opposition is making, he will intentionally dance around it and use buzzwords and sprinkle in his opinion when it isn't necessary, and he'll straw man the ever-living shit out of the opposition all of the time. It's annoying. And while blood sports are absolutely entertaining and they are a decent platform for jumping off ideas, it isn't when you have someone who is just outright trying to fool the audience because he doesn't have any actual arguments to make. He cannot actually counter the alt-right because his ideas are shit and they are undefendable in most cases. So here's what Mike Enoch should have done, and this is why I can't definitively say one over the other without having to get into the ideological question, but what Mike should have done is gotten his sources prepared for this debate. He knew it was coming up. He didn't just hop on. He knew this was coming up. Get your sources in line. Compile all of your infographics off of 4chan, get all of your names and your businesses and in your organizations named out, ready to go in order to counter this point. Because the question, I think, that should have been the topic of this debate was whether or not there is a problem with leftism as a political stance, or if there is a problem with Jewish influence and power. Now, you can make the case that it's sort of both, but Halsey is only saying that there is a leftist problem. He is essentially unable to answer the JQ because it would force him out into the open. He knows that he is a Jewish supremacist. He supports Israel. He supports the United States supporting Israel. He supports the expropriation of resources from the United States to Israel because he shares the same ethnicity with those people in Israel. And this is the problem. This is the dual loyalty problem that Mike brought up, although he should have pushed more on the dual citizenship thing, but he got sucked in to Halsey's shitty debate tactics and completely avoided the topic. I think when they brought up the issue of dual citizenship, I think that's when they started going into Mike's personal life. So of course it sparks this emotional response, and he immediately gets off track to what they're actually talking about. And this is also the problem with how Halsey debates, is that he tries to emotionally antagonize you in order to get you to forget what they were arguing about. So it's something that you have to be wary of when you're arguing against these types of people. I think it's about time that we finally put civic nationalism to rest, so that will probably be coming up soon. If you enjoy my content, please leave a like, subscribe, go to the About section on the channel. You can find me on Twitter and on the Discord that I frequent almost every day if you'd like to talk to me on there. And thanks for listening.